Welcome to Ate J's podcast, wherein you will not just learn, but you're also gonna have fun. From the land of a linguist, Bachelor of English Education, I am Chinrose Del Campo, but you can also call me Ate J. And welcome to my very first episode exclusively here in BEE2. Allow me to share with you some of my experiences throughout my journey. But before we proceed to the most exciting part of this episode, let's all talk about first the highlights of this podcast. For today's episode, we are going to tackle linguistics competence, along with its components and its significance to us. But first, what do we mean by linguistic competence? Linguistic competence, also known as language performance, refers to a person's subconscious knowledge of the rules governing speech in their first language. According to Connolly and Swain, in the year 1980, four underlying components of language define linguistic competence, which is strategic competence, grammatical competence, competence in speech, and social linguistic competence. Another definition of linguistic competence, according to David Bishop, is that linguistic competence is a term used by speech experts and anthropologists to describe how language is defined within a community of speakers. This term applies to mastering the combination of sounds, syntax, and semantics known as the grammar of a language. People with such competence have learned to utilize the grammar of their spoken language to generate an unlimited amount of statements. This term is distinct from the concept of communicative competence, which determines what is socially appropriate speech. Indeed, it is important for us to learn this thing, particularly for me as I am taking an English major. Knowing these matters would help us improve our skills, may it be public speaking, writing skills, social and communication skills. As we are always interacting with different people, our communication and social skills are somehow enhancing. Through that, we can also enrich our grammar. And if we talk about grammar, according to Lynn Cameron, the word grammar can be used to refer to an aspect of how language is conventionally used. This is to the structure or system of a particular language. According to Richards, grammatical competence refers to the knowledge we have of a language that accounts for our ability to produce sentences in a language, while for Savinon, one demonstrates grammatical competence not by stating a rule, but by using a rule in the interpretation, expression, or negotiation of meaning. Indeed, being grammatically correct would be much more helpful for us to communicate clearly without being misinterpreted by others, especially when we were expressing our thoughts and opinions. But sometimes when we were conversing with other people, we have difficulty conveying the message that we want to convey because of the fear of judgment. Hence, we should not let the predicament hinders us from exploring and learning. According to Richard Nordquist, the term communicative competence refers to both the tacit knowledge of a language and the ability to use it effectively. It's also called communication competence, and it's the key to social acceptance. The concept of communicative competence was forged by the linguist Delheims in the year 1972. He defined communicative competence as the knowledge that speakers and listeners have to communicate appropriately in different social contexts. It is a central notion in social linguistics and other socially oriented approaches. Grew out of resistance to the concept of linguistic competence introduced by Noam Chomsky. Most scholars now consider linguistic competence to be a part of communicative competence. Those that I have mentioned certainly could help us in any way. It's just a matter of how we will use or apply those components. And as we go along, I will now share with you some of the weaknesses and strengths that I have discovered throughout my journey. Let's start first with my weaknesses. First is public speaking. Well, I guess plenty of you here can also relate to me. I don't know why it's really hard for me to speak in front of so many people, to the point that it made me sweat bullets, utter when speaking, and most worse is that it can also trigger my social anxiety. The second one is confidence. I truly believe that you will be an effective speaker if you have the confidence to the way you stand, speak, gesture, and make eye contact with your listener and audience. And that's where I am lacking. That whenever I see someone confidently standing in front of so many people or an ocean of people, speaking comfortably and interacting without minding if they were interested in what they are talking about, just by that, it made me envy them. The third one is time management. Sometimes procrastination hits me so hard to the point that I always finish my task later than the given due of it. And the last one is comprehension. Honestly speaking, I have difficulty understanding words, sentences, and context that uses unfamiliar terms for me. Am I the only one? Or lots of you here can also relate to me? Well, yeah, it's really hard to comprehend such sentences, especially if it's not familiar to you, right? It would take a lot of your time reading, 1,000 times of repeating the same context just because you're having a hard time understanding it. But would you rather let those weaknesses hinder you from going beyond? And that enters my strength. Do you have an idea what my strength is? Well, I am also aware that you don't. Just kidding. My strength is that I am a seeker. I seek information, help, and seek for improvement. Being a seeker would allow you to go beyond, would make you explore and discover new things that would eventually help you grow. Furthermore, I just want to share some of the strategies that can help you cope with those weaknesses of yours. First is read and read until you travel around the world, because I believe that through reading, you can go beyond what you just only think and with what you can only imagine. Second, talk and talk until you have nothing to say anymore. It would help you to share or express your thoughts comfortably and would also enhance your speaking skills. And the last one is practice. I truly believe that practice makes perfect. you should not settle for less, average, and mediocre. Yeah, we are all familiar with the word mediocre. Kidding aside, practice makes everything flawless, but it doesn't mean that being flawed will make you different. But if you want to develop and enhance your shortcomings, start the changes within yourself. Be courageous and confident enough to face all the dilemmas that are trying to drag you down. And that's it. I hope that you did enjoy and learn something from me. Thank you for listening. Again, this is Ate J's podcast, yours truly, Jean Rose Del Campo, leaving you with a quote. The most striking aspect of linguistic competence is what we may call the creativity of language, that is, the speaker's ability to produce new sentences that are immediately understood by other speakers, although they bear no physical resemblance to sentences which are familiar. By Noam Chomsky.